In the soft dawn light filtering through the vast glass walls of a major international airport, the terminal buzzed with the familiar symphony of rolling suitcases, muffled announcements echoing through the spacious halls, and the hurried footsteps of travelers navigating their journeys with a mix of anticipation and fatigue, a space where worlds collided in transient encounters that often revealed unspoken hierarchies beneath the surface of efficiency and courtesy, where people from all walks of life crossed paths in a dance of departures and arrivals, each carrying their own stories and expectations for the day ahead. Lena Harper stepped up to the check-in counter with the grace of someone accustomed to commanding rooms and leading high-level discussions, her 8-year-old presence exuding quiet authority in a tailored emerald blazer and flowing scarf that hinted at her global roots and extensive travels. A black woman at the helm of a $950 million travel conglomerate that orchestrated luxury experiences for elite clients worldwide, having just returned from overseeing expansions in emerging markets, where her negotiations had secured multi-million-dollar deals through sharp intellect, cultural fluency, and a deep understanding of international dynamics that allowed her to bridge gaps and foster partnerships that benefited all involved parties. Her deployments in the corporate arena had taken her to boardrooms across continents, where she navigated complex alliances and market challenges with finesse. But now, seeking a brief respite before her next flight to finalize a major collaboration, she anticipated a seamless process, the kind she had facilitated for others through her company's innovative platforms that streamlined high-end travel arrangements with personalized touches and cutting-edge technology designed to enhance user satisfaction and efficiency. The counter agent, a young woman named Riley Thompson, whose badge gleamed under the fluorescent lights that illuminated the bustling area, glanced up with a practiced smile that faltered slightly upon hearing Lena's melodic accent, a blend of her heritage influences that added richness and depth to her words as she confirmed her premium booking with clear and articulate precision, drawing from years of public speaking and client interactions that had honed her communication skills to perfection. Riley let out a light chuckle, her eyes narrowing just a fraction in a way that suggested amusement mixed with something less benign. "That's an interesting way you say that. Where's that accent from?" Anyway, her tone laced with a curiosity that bordered on mockery, perhaps unintended but revealing nonetheless, drawing subtle snickers from nearby staff who exchanged knowing glances over their screens and clipboards, as if Lena's speech was an anomaly in this sterile environment filled with diverse voices from around the world. Lena paused, her grip on her leather briefcase tightening imperceptibly as she processed the moment, her mind flashing to similar subtle encounters in her career where her background had been highlighted in ways that felt diminishing rather than celebratory. But she responded evenly, inquiring about her seat assignment with the poise honed from years of leading diverse teams through challenging projects and negotiations that required maintaining composure under scrutiny. Riley's smile sharpened, her fingers tapping the keyboard with exaggerated slowness that seemed deliberate. "Oh, there's been a little mix-up with the system. Looks like we've had to adjust your seating to standard." Her explanation delivered with a casual air that masked any underlying decisions, the screen reflecting a decision made not by algorithm alone but perhaps by assumption or oversight, the laughter from her colleagues echoing faintly as they whispered about fitting the profile in hushed tones that carried just far enough to be noticed. Travelers in line shifted restlessly behind her, some casting judgmental looks at Lena as if she were the cause of the delay that was holding up their own progress, their impatience amplifying the isolation she felt in that moment amidst the crowd, a reminder of how quickly dignity could be undermined in public spaces where efficiency often trumped empathy and fairness. Lena's mind raced through her options, considering the broader implications for her company's reputation and client trust, her phone vibrating with a discreet alert from her assistant who was monitoring travel logistics from the office, but she chose composure over immediate escalation, requesting a supervisor with a voice that carried unwavering clarity and professionalism, only to be met with delays and excuses that dragged on as Riley radioed for assistance with a sigh that suggested inconvenience. The agent's radio crackling with hushed instructions that hinted at deeper directives or standard procedures being followed without question, the minutes stretching as Lena stood there, her posture impeccable and her expression neutral, drawing on the resilience built from overcoming barriers in her ascent to leadership, where she had transformed her conglomerate from a niche service into a global leader by emphasizing inclusive practices and innovative solutions that catered to a diverse clientele. The supervisor, a middle-aged man named Ethan Brooks with a name tag slightly askew on his uniform, arrived with a forced neutrality that masked any internal conflict, echoing the agent's claims of a technical glitch in the system that occasionally led to such adjustments, his eyes darting as if aware of the fragility in his words and the potential for misunderstanding. But Lena noted every detail, the overridden codes flashing briefly on the screen before being minimized, the whispered consultations between staff that revealed a culture of quiet exclusion and routine acceptance of such occurrences without deeper inquiry. She didn't raise her voice or demand restitution on the spot, recognizing that a public scene might not serve her long-term goals. Instead, she gathered her belongings with deliberate calm, her parting words simple yet pointed with a professional tone. This oversight will be addressed appropriately through the proper channels, leaving the staff with a lingering unease they couldn't quite place or dismiss as just another passenger complaint. As she moved toward the lounge area with its comfortable seating and complimentary amenities, her phone connected her to her team back at headquarters, initiating protocols that would unravel the airline's complacency from afar through structured reviews and communications, the terminal's bustle continuing unaware of the seismic shift she had set in motion with her measured response, her resolve fueled by a history of turning barriers into breakthroughs in the travel sector, where she had pioneered programs that promoted fair treatment and cultural sensitivity for all users. The airport's vast halls, with their high ceilings and echoing sounds, seemed to close in slightly as she walked, but Lena's focus remained sharp, her mind already mapping out the next steps in a plan that would highlight the need for accountability without resorting to dramatic measures. Drawing on her expertise in managing large-scale operations to ensure that the incident became a catalyst for positive adjustments rather than a forgotten grievance. The line of passengers behind her proceeded as if nothing had happened, but a few exchanged glances of curiosity or sympathy, wondering about the woman who had handled the situation with such grace, unaware of the influence she wielded in an industry that relied on seamless experiences for its success. Lena's accent, a badge of her multifaceted identity shaped by international upbringing and professional travels, had become the pretext for this erasure, a casual ridicule that masked systemic flaws she had long fought against in her career by advocating for diversity in hiring and training within her own organization, building her conglomerate from a startup into a powerhouse, by championing inclusive travel solutions that celebrated differences and ensured equitable service for all, from luxury retreats to accessible adventures. The encounter lingered in her thoughts as she settled into a quiet corner of the lounge, sipping a coffee while reviewing emails on her tablet. Her team already compiling data on the airline's practices and preparing contingencies that would protect her company's interests while pushing for broader improvements. The soft hum of conversations around her, a reminder that such moments were not isolated but part of a larger pattern that required thoughtful intervention to address effectively. As flights were called and groups departed, Lena's determination solidified, her experience transforming from a personal slight into a strategic opportunity to foster change, the airport's rhythm carrying on, but now infused with the subtle undercurrent of her impending actions that would resonate far beyond the terminal's confines, emphasizing the power of composure in the face of adversity and the impact one individual could have when leveraging their position for the greater good in an interconnected world of travel and business. The lounge's ambient lighting cast a warm glow on her screen as she coordinated with partners, ensuring that the response was comprehensive and aligned with her values of integrity and fairness, the day's events serving as a pivotal point in her ongoing efforts to make the industry more welcoming and just for everyone involved. From the perspective of Riley Thompson behind the counter, where the hum of scanners and the clatter of keyboards usually provided a rhythmic comfort to her shifts, the shift that followed Lena's departure felt like a slow unraveling of the routine she had mastered over her 3 years in the role. Her hands fumbling with boarding passes as whispers from colleagues about the accent incident lingered in her mind like an unwelcome echo, a mix of defensiveness and unease settling in as she replayed her chuckle and the group's shared smirks in her head, questioning for the first time if her light-hearted jab had crossed into something more damaging that could come back to affect her own standing in the team. her eyes darting to the clock as delays began to pile up from unexplained glitches in the reservation system that made her stomach twist with a growing sense of accountability she had never felt before in her daily tasks. Ethan Brooks, the supervisor who had always prided himself on keeping operations smooth and conflicts minimal, paced his small office overlooking the gates with its view of planes taxiing under the bright lights, his phone buzzing with urgent queries from higher-ups about system logs showing unusual overrides that he had approved without a second thought. His initial dismissal of Lena now haunting him as reports of frozen accounts and rerouted bookings trickled in through urgent emails, forcing him to confront how his hesitation to intervene had perpetuated a chain of quiet approvals that now threatened his position and the stability he had built over a decade in management. His fingers drumming on the desk as he drafted memos to cover potential fallout, each word weighing heavier with the realization that his leadership had cracks he could no longer ignore. In the break room tucked away from the passenger flow, a young attendant named Mia Santos leaned against the vending machine with its glowing display of snacks she no longer had an appetite for, her uniform crisp, but her expression troubled as she scrolled through her phone, recalling how she had overheard the radio exchanges about the seating change and chosen silence to avoid rocking the boat or drawing attention to herself in a job she needed for her family's support. Now grappling with regret as news of partnership withdrawals spread through staff chats and group messages that lit up her screen, prompting her to draft a confidential email highlighting procedural lapses and suggesting improvements, her perspective shaped by her own experiences of subtle exclusion in the industry as an immigrant worker who had climbed the ranks through hard work and quiet endurance. The security officer, Jamal Reed, stationed near the scanners with his uniform badge catching the light from overhead fixtures, reviewed footage on his monitor with a furrowed brow that deepened with each replay, his impartial role clashing with the evident bias in the recordings that showed the agent's tone and the staff's reactions, leading him to file an internal note that escalated the matter to compliance without hesitation, his actions driven by a personal code that refused to ignore the patterns he had seen too often in his patrols. Patterns that reminded him of his own encounters with unfair treatment during his early career in law enforcement before transitioning to airport security. Passenger Services Coordinator, Sophia Chen, fielded complaints from other travelers who had witnessed the exchange and now felt emboldened to voice their discomfort over similar past experiences, her notepad filling with accounts that painted a picture of unequal treatment across various counters, compelling her to advocate for a review meeting where she voiced concerns about training gaps in cultural sensitivity and customer equity, her perspective shaped by her own background as an Asian American professional who had navigated microaggressions in client-facing roles, turning the day's events into a catalyst for pushing for mandatory workshops that could prevent future oversights. As delays mounted due to glitched manifests that caused lines to snake longer than usual, ground crew leader Carlos Mendoza coordinated with teams on the tarmac under the roar of engines, his radio crackling with frustrations over rerouted flights and delayed baggage handling, tracing the disruptions back to the gate incident through overheard conversations and system alerts, reflecting on how team dynamics had allowed such oversights to slip through without question, motivating him to propose inclusivity workshops for his staff during their next briefing, drawing from his experiences as a Latino supervisor who had built his career on fostering teamwork and mutual respect among diverse crews. In the executive lounge with its plush seating and complimentary refreshments, a veteran pilot named Captain Elena Vargas sipped coffee from a ceramic mug while scrolling through alerts on her tablet about contract reevaluations and potential route changes, her seasoned view recognizing the broader implications for airline reputation and operational stability, prompting her to reach out to union reps for discussions on ethical standards and employee protections, her insights informed by decades in the skies where she had witnessed shifts in industry practices and advocated for fair treatment in crew assignments. The IT specialist, Raj Patel, troubleshooted the cascading errors in the booking system from his workstation surrounded by multiple screens displaying code lines and error logs, his focus sharpening as he identified targeted holds that he linked to Lena's company through database queries, leading him to question the fairness protocols embedded in their software and propose updates that incorporated bias detection algorithms, inspiring a personal commitment to audit for similar vulnerabilities in future developments. His motivation stemming from his background as a first-generation immigrant engineer who valued equitable technology. Baggage handler team supervisor Tyrone Ellis overheard radio talk of the event while directing loads in the underbelly of the terminal with its conveyor belts whirring steadily. His own history of facing similar judgments in his rise from entry level to leadership, fueling empathy that drove him to encourage his crew to speak up in team huddles about workplace fairness, turning the incident into a teaching moment for building solidarity among his multicultural team. Customer relations agent, Lila Nguyen, handled incoming queries about the downgrading from her desk lined with policy manuals and complaint forms, her empathy growing as patterns of uneven service emerged from caller descriptions, pushing her to compile a report from management on recurring issues and recommend sensitivity training programs, her drive rooted in her experiences as a Vietnamese American who had overcome language barriers in her career to become a voice for better customer experiences. As the day wore on with flights boarding amid growing confusion from system hiccups, these individual reflections intertwined like threads in a tapestry, creating a web of introspection that chipped away at the facade of normalcy and routine operations, each person's quiet reckoning contributing to a collective shift toward accountability and self-examination without dramatic upheaval or public spectacle. The terminal's energy subtly transforming as staff began to connect the dots between their actions and the broader consequences unfolding in real time, fostering a sense of shared responsibility that promised to reshape their approaches moving forward in ways that honored fairness and professionalism over expediency. The vending machine in the break room hummed softly as Mia finalized her email, her resolve strengthening with each keystroke, while Ethan stared at his reflection in the office window, contemplating how to lead his team through the impending reviews with transparency. Jamal archived the footage with notes for follow-up, his sense of justice satisfied for the moment, as Sophia scheduled the meeting with a renewed purpose that energized her steps. Carlos rallied his ground crew with words of encouragement during a brief pause, emphasizing the importance of unity in their demanding roles, and Captain Vargas drafted a proposal for the union that outlined steps for inclusive policies. Raj tested a patch on his system, envisioning software that promoted equality in access, while Tyrone shared a quick story with his handlers to illustrate the value of standing together. Lila organized her report with careful annotations, her commitment to improvement evident in the detail, the day's events weaving through their thoughts like a common thread that bound their experiences without overlap, each finding unique paths to growth amid the subtle chaos that had begun with a single interaction at the counter. The airport's vast structure, with its echoing halls and constant movement, seemed to hold its breath as these personal evolutions unfolded, the fractures in the facade not breaking the whole but revealing opportunities for mending through individual agency and collective awareness, ensuring that the lessons learned would echo long after the flights had departed and the terminals quieted for the night. In executive suites across the travel sector, where polished desks and panoramic views of cityscapes often masked the undercurrents of competitive pressures and ethical dilemmas, Lena's strategic moves prompted urgent boardroom reevaluations that went beyond mere damage control, companies auditing their alliances for equity alignment with a newfound rigor that involved cross-departmental teams reviewing contracts line by line for clauses on diversity and fair treatment, her influence catalyzing policies that embedded measurable diversity metrics into every new agreement and renewal process, fostering collaborations that prioritized inclusive practices over short-term profit margins by requiring annual reports on representation in leadership and customer service roles. Advocacy networks amplified her approach through digital campaigns and virtual summits where thought leaders from various industries shared frameworks for ethical governance and sustainable business models, attendance surging as professionals from startups to conglomerates sought practical tools for implementing transformative leadership that emphasized empathy and accountability, her model inspiring grants for underrepresented entrepreneurs in tourism who pitched ideas for accessible adventures and culturally sensitive experiences, turning her story into a blueprint for funding initiatives that leveled the playing field. Educational institutions adapted curricula in business and hospitality programs, incorporating case studies on her methodology for ethics courses where professors facilitated debates on balancing innovation with justice, students engaging in capstone projects that proposed innovative travel apps focused on accessibility features like real-time translation and bias-free recommendations, leading to partnerships with tech incubators that brought student concepts to prototype stages and potential market launches. Community initiatives blossomed in cities with major hubs, local groups organizing forums on cultural sensitivity in service industries, where participants from airlines to hotels role-played scenarios to build empathy and quick response skills, her story serving as a cornerstone for dialogues that bridge divides between frontline workers and executives, resulting in collaborative pledges to implement joint training sessions that enhanced understanding across roles. Philanthropic arms of her conglomerate expanded scholarships for diverse talent in hospitality fields. Recipients mentored by Lena's team through virtual sessions and internships to cultivate future innovators who championed fair practices and inclusive environments. Their progress tracked through personalized development plans that included leadership retreats and networking events designed to build lasting connections. Policy influencers cited her precedent in lobbying efforts for regulations that mandated bias training in aviation and related sectors, resulting in bipartisan support for bills enhancing passenger rights with provisions for transparent complaint resolution and diversity audits. Her consultations providing real-world insights that shaped enforceable guidelines for better outcomes. Media platforms featured thought pieces on her philosophy of quiet empowerment, podcasts interviewing allies and experts who expanded on themes of resilience in professional settings, audiences engaging in comment sections with personal commitments to adopt similar principles in their workplaces, fostering online communities that shared resources on ethical decision-making. Corporate retreats adopted her principles as core modules, facilitating workshops where executives explored vulnerability in leadership through guided exercises and group reflections, outcomes yielding commitments to transparent audits and mentorship programs that promoted diverse talent pipelines for long-term sustainability. Youth programs integrated her narrative into leadership camps for teens, where facilitators used interactive simulations to teach about standing up for fairness in group settings, participants designing campaigns for respectful interactions in public spaces like schools and events, their efforts recognized in national awards that highlighted youth-led innovations in social harmony. Lena's advisory roles grew organically, consulting for startups on building resilient cultures from inception, with foundational policies that wove equity into every aspect of operations. Her insights preventing common pitfalls through proactive frameworks that included regular feedback loops and inclusive hiring strategies. International partners adapted her strategies to fit regional contexts, tailoring them for global impact by incorporating local customs into training modules, fostering cross-cultural exchanges that strengthened networks and led to joint ventures in eco-friendly tourism. Personal reflections from individuals influenced by her actions circulated in professional journals and blogs, detailing how her example prompted career pivots toward purpose-driven roles in social enterprise and consulting, their testimonials adding depth to the conversation on meaningful work. Nonprofits partnered with her for awareness drives on ethical travel, events drawing crowds to discuss systemic reforms in the industry, funds raised supporting legal aid for those facing discrimination in services, and creating hotlines for real-time assistance. As influence expanded without fanfare, Lena curated a think tank for travel innovation, convening experts from tech, hospitality, and policy to envision future models centered on dignity and sustainability, outputs shaping industry standards through white papers and pilot programs that tested new approaches in select markets. Family foundations honored her with endowments for education in underrepresented communities, scholarships empowering the next generation to pursue careers in global business with a focus on ethical leadership and cultural competence. In quiet evenings away from the spotlight, Lena mentored emerging professionals via virtual calls and correspondence, guiding them through challenges with wisdom drawn from her experiences in navigating complex landscapes. Her advice emphasizing the balance between ambition and integrity. The young couple from unrelated encounters symbolized broader ripple effects, their advocacy echoing her themes in local efforts to promote kindness in daily interactions, inspiring neighborhood groups to host similar discussions. Policy summits featured her as a keynote speaker in virtual and hybrid formats, speeches inspiring actionable pledges from attendees to implement changes in their organizations, follow-up networks tracking progress through shared metrics and collaborative tools. Media specials chronicled the evolution sparked by her decisions, highlighting transformed lives and organizations through interviews with those who had adopted her frameworks, focusing on positive outcomes like increased diversity in leadership positions. Lena's journaling practice turned into published essays on resilience and strategic empathy, proceeds funding community projects that supported education and empowerment in travel-related fields. Veteran professionals cited her in memoirs and articles, crediting her for reigniting their commitment to integrity in long-standing careers, sharing anecdotes of how her approach influenced their own policy shifts. As years unfolded with steady progress, her legacy manifested in safer, more equitable spaces across the sector, a testament to the enduring power of principled action that continued to inspire without needing constant reinforcement, the horizons of renewal expanding as new generations built upon the foundations she had laid with vision and determination.